Hi and welcome yet again to another edition of News on Venezuela Insider. So yesterday has been a little bit calmer due to the gravity of the situation. And unlike, Halloween evening that was, a lot of movement back then. So let's cover what happened last day and the news that we have right now. The biggest news is the movement of the USS Gerald Ford. Is the largest air carrier in the world for the US military, of course. And according to the open source information that we have, the vessel, I'm gonna call it that, and the whole package that not only includes the air carrier but also a handful of military vessels, destroyers, I believe, is full steam ahead coming to the Caribbean. It was on the Mediterranean and is rapidly moving to the Caribbean Operations Theater. Now, how it's gonna be used? Well, we don't know yet. I'm not a military expert. Keeping on the military news, the Secretary of War, formerly Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, said that regarding the situation in Venezuela, according to the press, he answered to the press and said that not a decision has been made and is not going to be discussed publicly of future action. So basically, yet again, the Schrodinger's cat is we're going to attack, we are not going to attack, but Secretary Hegseth said that we are not discussing publicly if we are going to do it or not. So, how politicians are. The other thing that Hegseth mentioned is that, well, he published another vessel strike in the Caribbean with alleged cargo of narcotics. This is like the 12th attack on the past couple of months. A little strike, and the people on board all passed away. Other thing that happened, it was published yesterday, is a poll from Atlas Intel. If you don't know, Atlas Intel is actually the most accurate pollster regarding the US election on the past couple of election cycles. I believe the firm is from Brazil, but they work a lot on the US and different parts in the world. And they did a Latin American wide poll regarding the situation in Venezuela. If you want to check the results, they are on my Twitter account. So you just Google, on the search, put Atlas Intel, and you're gonna see the whole poll. It was made throughout Latin America, and the sentiment on the situation right now in Latin America regarding the Venezuelan affair is that first, a slight majority actually support the military action in Venezuela. An overwhelming majority of the people on the poll throughout Latin America, they actually consider the government in Venezuela a dictatorship, over 70%, and also they want democracy for Venezuela. So if they are alleging that Venezuela is not a democracy, and that's questionable. Also, they did a poll regarding the most popular Venezuelan political figures in the country. Remember, this is for the rest of Latin America. And Maria Corina Machado is actually the most popular in the continent, a little bit over 50%, like 53, 54%. That's the support of Maria Corina Machado in Latin America. Number 2 is the quote-unquote president-elect of the opposition, Edmundo González, at 44. On a little bit over 30 irrelevant figures right now on the political landscape in Venezuela, like Juan Guaidó, that Guaidó, and Leopoldo López, Guaido's mentor. They have right now around 30% of support in the that's on the rest of Latin America. Actually, both Guaido and Leopoldo Lopez are very unpopular in within Venezuela. Around 1 or 2% is their political capital. Regarding the other side, Maduro and such, Hugo Chavez, the late Hugo Chavez, is the most popular figure, left-leaning figure in Venezuela, throughout Latin America, around 28%. And Maduro, he's measuring around between 12 and 18% of popularity in Latin America. And a handful of others that measure very, very low, the sentiment amongst people within Latin America. Regarding the countries that are more, hawkish on the situation in Venezuela, you found Peru. Peru is actually the most hawkish country. It has been affected a lot by the migration of Venezuelans. Ecuador, many people in Ecuador, close to 70%, support the actions in Venezuela. And then you have Colombia, you have Argentina, and so on. Okay, if you want to check yet again, you want to check the whole poll is on my Twitter feed. Now, other thing that happened, since it was a little bit slow regarding the news on Saturday, Maria Corina Machado, the opposition leader, gave two interviews that I found interesting. The first one is on Fox News, and the interview was with Lara Trump, Eric Trump's wife, so it's Donald Trump's daughter-in-law. And they discussed, socialism that is catching up in the United States. Maria Corina Machado said there is socialism, there is not a free lunch in socialism. Also, she endorsed the $50 million bounty on Maduro. Also, she mentions that Maduro has a war against the Venezuelan people. So according to her, we are technically at war against their own government. And not only against the Venezuelan people, this is according to Machado, also according to the democratic nations in Latin America. I will add, this is myself, I will add to the right-leaning led governments in Latin America, like Argentina, like El Salvador, like, also a situation in Chile, and in Ecuador also, by the way. Also, she mentions that the overwhelming majority of Venezuelans support Donald Trump. And actually, I want to make a video on my take on that. It's kind of true, but, with some nuances, as always. And Maria Corina Machado mentions on Fox News that Venezuela, if there is a quote-unquote regime change, will become the best ally of the United States in the hemisphere. And, with Machado, if that happens, that I think that's going to happen. Now, there is a second interview of Machado, but this time it wasn't in Spanish, with a popular young Venezuelan content creator called Kilometro. He's an interviewer. He's kind of like a Gen Z Venezuelan version of Joe Rogan, something like that. And he's very popular. And the discussion was mostly about the future of Venezuela if there is a transition. First, Maria Corina Machado is taking it as a given that is going to happen. They talk mostly about the economic recovery. Remember, the Venezuelan GDP collapsed around 80%. It has recovered a little bit, significantly, but still a long way to go. We have discussed this, a lot of times here on the channel. So what she wants to do in order to increase to speed up the economic recovery is that education, she wants every Venezuelan to speak English, and sadly that's not the case right now. But the most important thing, according to Machado, is that every Venezuelan dominates what she calls the digital language. So I agree with that, and actually Venezuela has a great human capital just needs further development because due of lack of opportunities. That also was discussed on that particular podcast. Mm, she says that, Kilometro, the interviewer, says that I want a normal country. And Machado responds, no, I don't want a normal country. I want an extraordinary country. And we can achieve it, according to Machado. And actually, I agree on that. I agree a lot. She also mentions that the most important thing is the rule of law. Machado quotes a recent study of 143 countries regarding their rule of law, and Venezuela is dead last on that particular ranking. She is number 143 from 143 nations measure. She also mentions that Venezuela has the potential of the Venezuelan GDP to go 17x. Right now, it's a little bit over 100 billion, and she says that it could reach 1.7 trillion in 15 years. A little bit, optimistic for my taste. This is my conservative estimate, is half a trillion on 5 years in order to, to get all of the things that artificially destroyed the Venezuelan GDP. And lastly, they talk about infrastructure, mostly the public services, don't worry, electricity, water supply, transportation, things like that. And Maria Corina Machado answers this, that was the question by Kilometro, and Machado answers that that will be the easiest thing to do, is the thing that she is worried the least, because when you, according to her, when you create the incentives and private investment and things like that, it's gonna get fixed in no time, according to Machado. So, no much to discuss. Also, I have to mention that please be aware of the analysis regarding Venezuela, especially from people from abroad. I'm seeing terrible analysis every single day. For instance, I have to endure the interview of Tucker Carlson and Conor McGregor, and it's horrible. It's useless. Please don't take that. Take it with a grain of salt, and not even with a grain of salt. I mean, it's unwatchable, and frankly, if your intent is learning about Venezuela, well, those particular interviews are gonna take you nowhere. And lastly, yet again, Peter Sahan, I watched another analysis about Venezuela, and yet again, Peter Sahan being Peter Sahan. It was mostly, starts with great intel, but the conclusions are horrible. So that will be all for today. Thanks again, and we'll see each other on the next video.